That is your speed limit? What? Hi and welcome back to another video about one of my favorite states in the United States, because he's so big, so different, and I met so many nice people from there, and it is Texas. And today we are discovering 10 shocking things I learned driving around Texas for 4 months. I'm very curious to see what you can, or what shocking you can see about Texas just with driving around. But before we do that, please make sure to hit a like and a subscribe. We are very close to the 58,000 subscribers. Would be awesome if we hit them. And if you want to see more, then you can check out my Patreon. Link is in the description, and now let's go.
So earlier this year, I spent around 4 months in the great state of Texas. Now, Texas is quite the unique place. It definitely has its own culture and way of doing things, particularly when it comes to traffic and transportation. So in this video, I want to talk about 10 of the strangest traffic-related things I've discovered.
Is this something that you see quite often, that you have just, such a lane through grass?
Video, I want to talk about 10 of the strangest traffic-related things I've discovered while traveling around Texas. Welcome to the channel. I'm Mileage Mike, civil engineer turned full-time traveler. Like the video, subscribe if you love it, and let's talk about the Lone Star State. The first thing on this list is the frontage roads. Frontage roads are these access roads that parallel most of the freeways around Texas. You may have seen them in other states, so they're not entirely unique to Texas, but no other place builds nearly as many as Texas does. I did an earlier, more in-depth video on frontage roads that I'll link in the description, but generally these were built to provide access along the frontage of highways, hence the name frontage roads. As you notice with freeways without frontage roads, any business that sits adjacent to the freeway does not have direct access to it, usually reserving most development for the crossing roads near the exits. But with frontage roads, you'll often see development lined up and down the freeway here in Texas. Frontage roads do have their pros and cons, which I go over in more detail on the frontage roads video in the description. So we'll move on to the next.
So those frontage roads are more like highways in the kind that you don't have like so many entrances, and more than have like smaller roads that go through them. Have I understood that right, or understood that right, or not? Tell me in the comments.
Traffic oddity. And frontage roads leads us right into number 2, and that is the good old Texas turnaround. You know how in most states, if you're on a freeway and you want to turn around, then you get off on your exit, drive over to the other side, and exit back onto the main roadway? And that's just if you so happen to be near a simple diamond interchange. Well, in Texas, with its frontage roads, there's something called a Texas turnaround. These are U-turn movements that you can find off almost all frontage roads where they intersect the crossing road. In Texas, you don't have to wait or wonder where your next chance to turn around is. You can just get off on just about any frontage road and know that at some point you can ride on a fancy old Texas turnaround to reach the other side of the road, or to make that U-turn.
I had something like this in Malaysia. We in Germany don't have that at all. You have, if you are on a highway or something like this, you miss like your exit, damn, be along for a ride for at least 30 minutes of a detour, because there can be no exit or no really good exit for at least 15 minutes sometimes.
Back onto the freeway. The Texas turnaround is actually a very unique part of the Texas frontage road design that you don't find on the frontage roads in other states. I haven't quite been to every state just yet, but so far I haven't seen anyone else use the Texas turnaround along their frontage roads like here in Texas. Number 3 on the list are the double turns on yellow lights. Now in other states, everyone has seen an intersection where one can make a left turn after yielding to oncoming traffic on a flashing yellow arrow. This is called permissive yellow. Well, Texas takes it to another level. Texas is the only place so far that I've seen where there's a flashing yellow arrow that 2 lanes of traffic can turn onto. When I first saw this, I was hesitant to make that maneuver, as it just didn't feel right and kind of didn't feel safe. But after seeing many of the locals do it, I realized it's just a normal Texas thing. One thing I've noticed about intersections where multiple lanes can turn left at the same time is that often drivers ignore the dashed line that guides them onto their lane, and will often just turn left into whatever lane they feel like. That's even when they have a green arrow. So even after being here for a while, I'd recommend being extra cautious if you choose to turn along with other cars on that double yellow arrow. The other thing I questioned was just how well the car in the outer lane has the visibility to see when the coast is clear to make that turn with how far he is from view of the oncoming traffic. Makes me wonder what the crash statistics have been on this feature. So far, I've only seen this around the Dallas area, so I'm not sure if other parts of Texas utilize it. Number 4 is the high speed limits. Out in Texas, you're going to encounter the highest speed limits in America, bar none. In fact,
that is the highest speed limit? Like, what is that in kilometers per hour? Wait, miles per hour to kph. Like, wait, what was the... That is your speed limit? What? You know, that is less than our, 130 is our Richtgeschwindigkeit in Germany. It means that is what you can do, like, or should do even. And that is yet, you have less than that. I don't know how many, wait, let's move it around. How much did I drive already on a German Autobahn once? Yeah, I drove that like on a German Autobahn once. Not for a long time, like for a few seconds, but that is crazy. That is crazy. Only 80 per hour.
Texas 130 toll road in the Austin area has the highest posted speed limit
85
in the
only.
at a whopping 85 miles per
hour. In the
hour.
Americas. So what, in the Americas? So the whole double continent? That's the Americas, right? That's crazy.
The speed limit was raised this high to encourage through travelers to use the toll road over Interstate 35 through the city, though it has had limited results. Out in West Texas, you can find speed limits up to 80 miles per hour on Interstate 10 headed towards El Paso.
Wait,
as well as
otherwise you always have 60 miles per hour? Or what? I mean, that is probably like 100 kilometers per hour. That is so slow.
Other rural parts of Texas. This makes sense as there is absolutely nothing out there for miles and miles.
Why not have a higher speed limit then if there is nothing out there? I mean, if there's nothing out there and you have, as shown here, like 3 lanes, that's so much potential to just have like a 200 speed limit or something like that. If you like this video, please hit a like. And if you want to see more of me, I would love if you subscribe. Thank you so much for that.
Most other interstates reach 75 miles per hour between cities in Texas, such as I-35, I-20, and I-45. Whereas in most other states, you're likely to see 65 or 70 miles per hour at max on rural interstates. One thing that will shock you is the speed limit.
Absolutely insane. I drove around a little bit in Europe, and I mean, of course, Germany has the highest with no speed limits at some point, but even other countries in Europe have always their 130, which is already more than those 80 miles per hour, right? Or Poland has 140. I mean, yeah, Baltics have like 90 or something, but there are quite some countries that have like way higher speed limits than America does.
Limit on rural 2-lane roads. Texas posts them at 70.
Of course, all what I said right now was in kilometers per hour, not in miles per hour. I don't know exactly how much that would be.
Miles per hour. Now, to be honest, 70 is probably the speed that a lot of drivers move at along these roads, even when it's posted at 55 or 60 miles per hour. But when you're about to pull onto a 2-lane road, just that wind that you feel as a car blows past you, probably doing something like 75 or 80 is wild. I probably wouldn't risk driving on one of these roads.
You would have so much fun on the Autobahn.
At night, so I've only done it during the day at this point. Then there's the urban freeway speed limits. Usually the speed limits on interstates or other freeways is lower than in the rural areas due to the higher traffic counts and more frequent entrance and exit points. Well, when I first got to Dallas and hopped on the Central...
That's crazy. Look at it. They're all streets? That was absolutely insane. I've never seen something like that.
Expressway, I saw something that I hadn't seen anywhere.
We do that, we have maybe one bridge over an Autobahn, and then we have mostly like I don't know, like looking like a flower or like a thing. What is the thing that it brings you luck if you have 4 leaves on it? This thing.
Where else? A 70 mile per hour posted speed limit on a busy urban freeway. Yep, that's right. 70 miles per hour is the speed limit on one of the busiest freeways in Dallas. Locals take
that's crazy. That's crazy. In a city, that's crazy.
Speed limit seriously too. and treat it more like a minimum speed sign rather than a maximum. If you come to Dallas for the first time, I recommend you staying in one of the 2 right lanes. At number 5, we have I-69. I-69, I-69. Gotta love this highway. But in this case, not the full or the main I-69, but I-69C. What's so unique about this route? Well, I-69C is the only C route on the interstate highway system. I-35 splits off into I-35E and I-35W right here in Texas, and again in Minnesota, but nowhere else besides Texas is an interstate split into 3 routes: I-69E, I-69C, and I-69W.
Interesting.
East, Central, and West I-69.
Wait, and that here is then probably, yeah, that looks very Mexican or like very Spanish. Nuevo Laredo. Okay, so that's like literally to the border to Mexico. You have a town called Corpus Christi? So Body of Christ? That's crazy. Why Corpus Christi?
These routes are branches of the future NAFTA superhighway I-69 that will theoretically exist one day between Texas and Michigan. Texas is working hard building its part.
It's crazy how long they are. Look at that. Look at that, how long this interstate is. I don't know, that are a few thousand kilometers.
Texas and Michigan. Texas is working hard building its part, but don't expect to see movement from nearby states Louisiana nor Mississippi anytime in the next few decades. I-69C heads down to the Rio Grande Valley area around McAllen and crosses over into Mexico via US 281. I had a chance to visit this area earlier this year in June, and Texas has definitely got a lot of construction going on here. In other states, these highways would have probably just been given 3-digit auxiliary numbers, but here in Texas, they march to the beat of their own drum.
So what I see so far is that in Texas, driving is a little bit more fun than in the other states, at least from what he says. You know, higher speed limits, very nice highways, even through cities, even more, splits in lanes, for example. So is it maybe just a state for car lovers? Could we say that?
Number 6 on the list, we have super wide highways. Now, if you haven't heard already, Texas has built the world's widest highway in the Houston area.
Interesting.
This is known as the Katy Freeway, which carries Interstate 10 between the suburban city of Katy and downtown Houston. At its widest point, the Katy Freeway reaches a whopping 26 travel lanes, which includes frontage road lanes.
Just to put this in perspective, a normal German Autobahn has 2 to 3 lanes. Then at some points we have like 4, maybe 5 lanes. And that is already like, I don't know, probably have like one Autobahn that has like over, 100 meters or something, like 100 yards, I think, in American units, like 6 lanes. And those have 4 times that and 2 more. They have 26 lanes. That is absolutely unheard of in Germany. That is, and your lanes, I also heard in another video, are even thicker or way wider because you have way bigger cars than the German lanes. That is absolutely insane.
And express lanes down the center of the highway. Now, the Katy Freeway has been much maligned and criticized by some.
That is not a highway, right? That are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines maybe.
For being extremely overbuilt and inducing additional travel demand in the area, a concept that we'll discuss in a later video. But the wide highways in Texas doesn't end at the Katy. While in most states, it's rare to see a freeway with more than 4 general purpose lanes on each side for a long distance, Texas has plenty of freeways that match or exceed this capacity. Again, in Houston, I-69, the Southwest Freeway, and US 280, the Northwest Freeway, both boast a massive amount of travel lanes that make Atlanta's downtown connector look like just another highway. And not to be totally left out, you do encounter some unusually wide highways in the DFW area, such as I-35E in certain sections, and the I-635 loop. But overall, Houston is not only the king of massive highways in Texas, but also the United States.
But what I see here, it's the color of the highways is totally different from what we have in Europe. I don't know, do you not use asphalt? That looks a little bit more like beton or something like this. What do you use for your highways? Because ours are like peach black, like totally black, and yours are more like beige.
For number 7, we revisit a feature that's associated with the frontage road. Recall how frontage roads serve as sort of
Yeah, also, it looks way more beige, you know? We have not even, you know, even this is not really black. Ours are pitch black, like totally black.
Access road that runs alongside the main highway. Well, in some cases, the good folks of Texas just don't feel like waiting for their exit to get off the highway and onto that frontage road. Like you can see this driver doing here in Austin off I-35. He says, screw waiting in traffic, I'm going to make my own exit. This is what they call a Texit. Texits don't only apply for getting off the highway and onto the frontage road, but you may also occasionally find Texans driving off the frontage road and onto the main highway. You can usually tell where a Texit is common by looking for a beaten or worn path alongside the highway. Use the Texit at your own risk. At number 8 are fire lane markings. When you go into a parking lot in Texas, you're going to see something that you don't really see in other states. You're going to see these strange red painted lines that sort of outline where you can and can't drive and where you can and can't park. These are fire lanes too.
It's so interesting. That is like totally different than what we have in Germany. Let me pull it up here. Autobahn. Yeah, Autobahn. I think should like images. Here we see it. Like ours are very here. That is a good picture. Ours are just unbelievably black, and those are, you know, there are way more black ones. And yours are very, I don't know, very beige.
To denote the restricted areas for fire trucks and other emergency vehicles. Now, in other states, this is sort of an understood thing that you'll rarely find actually painted around the parking lot, at least not on this scale. However, in Texas, every parking lot, no matter how large or how small, usually has these red painted fire lines all over them. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I think it's pretty cool that Texas explicitly shows drivers where they're allowed to and not allowed to drive in the parking lots. Maybe other states should adopt this Texas habit. At number 9, we have the FM or farm to market highways. If you drive around Texas, you'll notice the typical hierarchy of highways that other states have. You have the interstate highways at the top, which Texas has decided to do their own thing and label it as IH-35, for example, rather than just saying I-35 like everybody else. U.S. highways are still called U.S. highways like all the other states. Texas uses this square-shaped shield to denote their state highways, and they also operate on their own program by calling them SH-130, for example, rather than just saying State Route 130 or Texas 130 like the other states would. And under that, they have yet another highway called the Farm to Market Roads, or FM for short. Farm to Market Roads are highways that are maintained by the Texas DOT and were built primarily to serve rural parts of the state. They gave these rural areas paved 2-lane roads and helped connect some of the more isolated parts of the state with the rest of its highways, giving ranchers and farmers a better way to get their goods to the market. In a few areas, you might see RM routes or ranch to market routes, but these basically serve the same purpose and are part of the same system. Over time, as some towns grew, some of these FM routes gained additional lanes, and some even upgraded to freeways. So basically,
that's a good thing, I think, in America, that you have so much more space to build another lane, because, I mean, of course, like, if you drive through a forest, this would be also possible. But again, in Germany, so many rules, regulations, that you can't build there because, you know, it's maybe a protection area. Like, from my feeling, everything is a protection area somehow. Yeah, so, and mostly, of course, in the city, they're just buildings. You can't build there.
The FM shield for a route in Texas, you can expect it to be at least 2 lanes and paved, regardless of how remote of a part of the state that you're in. And the final Texas roadway oddity that you will see in the state is the sheer number of loop highways. Now, loop highways are certainly not unique to Texas.
Oh, cool. Oh yeah, we would call this a ring.
Arterial beltways, and various other types of loop highways.
Yeah, we would call this like a ring. In München, Munich, there is the Münchner Ring, so the Ring of Munich. There are, I think, even 2 rings, like more inner ring and more outer ring. Yeah.
For the United States and even the rest of the world. However, Texas probably has more cities with loop roads than...
Yeah, you can see this here clearly. For example, here, this Fort Worth, you can already see the ring. I think pretty clearly, right? Here also Antonia, you can already see the ring really, really good. And here also in Houston, you can clearly see the ring. So yeah, I think you can absolutely greatly see that. For example, here Albuquerque, you don't see any ring.
The other state. Houston, of course, is king here.
Wow,
with
yeah.
Not 1, not 2, but 3 loops around the city. Dallas has a few looping highways, as does San Antonio, with multiple beltways. San Antonio sort of looks like a baby Houston in its layout. And the state capital of Austin is of course way behind the curve, but does plan to eventually have a full tolled beltway around the city. But where Texas stands out is how so many smaller towns have loop roads. In most cases, these aren't interstates, some aren't even freeways, but they do serve as loops, usually carrying a loop designation on the state route sign. Waco, Laredo.
But where's the ring? Where's the loop there?
Loop designation on the state route sign. Waco.
I mean, where's the, that's not really a loop. It's not closed.
Laredo, Tyler, Amarillo, Odessa, El Paso, Lubbock, and more. Some of these are simple 2-lane roads, while others are full-blown freeways. No other state has built loops around so many of its towns like Texas, and they are not done yet. There are several more loops, either under construction or being upgraded as we speak. And
I have never done that, but I should probably just drive like one time exactly just the one loop. That would be probably cool.
Alright guys, there you have it. 10 Texas traffic oddities that I encountered while traveling around the state. Have you been to Texas and experienced any of these things? Have you seen some of them in other states? Let me know.
I absolutely love that video because it gives you a little bit more into that. Everybody knows here in Europe that America is a car culture, right? That's a car country. So, but to see more of those differences and why maybe cars or having a car is also so much more convenient, despite that you have way worse public transport than we have in Europe, of course, is that, driving around is just pretty convenient with so many loops, so many wide roads, and especially in Texas here, what is of course very simple because Texas is the biggest state of all, if you don't count Alaska, of course. But I don't think so many people living in Alaska, so we can maybe not count them. So it makes absolutely sense that in Texas you have just so much good opportunity to drive because people need to drive to get from A to B because Texas is, I don't know, how much bigger, like 1.5 times bigger or 2 times as big as Germany? Something like that. I hope you have a great and wonderful day and we see each other in the next video. Bye!